Hello and welcome to today's podcast, Let's Talk About. And today we're going to be talking about, let's talk about how to parent your teenager. And I'm laughing because I've just picked up one of my favorite books and I was reading a story in there. Uh, and it is a great book, but Blame My Brain by Nicola Morgan. It really helps, or helped me, I should say, helped me to understand how the teenager in my life's brain was working at the time. And also when I reflect back on my own teenage years, which I have to tell you, I was a pretty awful teenager, probably from about the age of 15 to 18, that it helps me to understand a little bit about my own brain and how it works. So I thought I'd do a podcast today on how do we parent our teenagers. And one of the reasons I'm doing this is because a lot of people ask me about it every time I give a keynote talk, every time I do a training session. Somebody comes up to me and says, please, could you tell me how I can use the same skills when I'm negotiating with my teenager, or when I give them advice, they say, please, could you just come home with me and help me to have these conversations? Now, of course, it's a lot easier for me to have those conversations with the parent at the time because it's logical and calm. It's a lot harder when you're having the conversation with your own teenagers because there's tiredness, there's emotion on both sides, by the way, not just the teenager. I include myself in this. There is reaction. There is a feeling that you're being challenged as a parent, and often you are. Often you are being challenged because the teenager in your life is growing. So I thought we'd have a look at some of those reasons. I thought I'd recommend this book to you. If you are lucky enough to be the parent of a adolescent, a teenager, it's an excellent book that helps you to understand the teenage brain. And what happens in the teenage brain is very different from the adult brain and very different from the child brain. And I remember little Meg being probably 8 to 11, probably around the time she went to secondary school. And some of you, I feel sure, can relate to this. Who used to sit next to me, sit on my knee, hold my hand, want a hug, want a cuddle, want to share things with me. Sometimes, not all the time, obviously. Sometimes when I ask the adult question of, how's your day been at school? And I'd get fine. And then I'd be like, what have you done? And it'd be like, nothing. And then it'd be like, so you've done nothing in 8 hours. I don't understand why we have this conversation, but as adults, we seem we seem perfectly obliged to ask that question. And I realised after time that actually if I want to know what's happening in her day, I have to earn that right. We have to talk about something she really enjoys, and then we can come on to a subject of what I want to know. It's like when you come home from work, because I mean, one of my favourite mentors once said to me that adults are just children with better excuses. And I get that because I think when we are frustrated and reacting, we can behave in a very childlike way, or perhaps that's just me. I don't know, but maybe you can relate to that as well when you are reactionary and we just have better excuses about why we're tired or why we're hungry and that we can survive on no food all day and 4 hours sleep a night. And of course we can't because we're human beings and we're not designed that way. And it's not a very healthy way to live anyway. And but also as adults, we don't want to be told what to do. I don't know about you, but as soon as somebody starts talking to me like I'm a child and they're the parent and I'm an adult, I start to give childlike behaviour back. So it's funny how this big cycle goes around. Let's get back to children. So I remember all of those lovely things. And then suddenly, probably about the age of 11, definitely coincided with going to secondary school, everything changed. She disappeared. I didn't see her for hours, wondered where she was. And she was in her room. And this continued for some time. And then she came back down and we kind of got her back for a bit. And there wasn't a lot of conversation going on. There was a lot of grunting. There was a lot of there was a lot of sighing. There was a lot of pushback on a few things. And this is all about communicating as a teenager. It's just different. It's different how we communicate when we're going through our teenage years. And there's many, many reasons for this. I'll cover some of them today. I won't go into too much detail because otherwise this podcast will be the longest podcast in the world and you'll still be listening to it next week. But there's a lot going on. So let's first of all talk about the teenage brain and then we'll talk about us, the parents, and how we can manage ourselves. Because I don't know about you, but until I became a parent, I was an excellent parent. I had all these amazing ideas of what it would be like to be a parent. Of course, then I had a child in my life and everything was very different. There's a lot of balancing that goes on. There's a lot of guilt, especially around work-life balance. There's a lot of questioning some of the decisions, some of the conversations I had. Why couldn't I have done that better? Have I affected her? What does that look like going forward? So parenting is hard. Everybody's got an opinion about parenting. Everybody's got an opinion about parenting. Everybody shares their opinion about parenting, whether you want to hear it or not. Now, when I met Meg, I was learning to be a hostage and crisis negotiator. And so I started using some of the skills that I was learning with her, and they worked. That listening, that being present, that reflective language, that seeing the world from a different perspective really worked. And as we went through life, I continued to use those skills and continue to do so even now. But of course, that's easier said than done. Sometimes it's about learning which battles to pick. Sometimes it's about recognizing that you might be wrong. I know, shock horror, right? Shock horror that us as parents might actually be wrong. And sometimes it's just wading through treacle and battle zones and coming out the other side. So we know that the brain develops in a very different way when we're in our adolescent years. So it's growing and developing. It's got all these tentacles like a tree growing lots of branches, and some of them shear off and some of them don't. It's like an overwhelm and an overload, and different things become important. So, for example, where your opinion was probably important beforehand, now it's not so important. And the friends' opinions are more important, and the fitting in is more important, and the being socially accepted is more important. And so we get some pushback on that. We get different experiences going on, and some of our beliefs start to get challenged, some of our values get challenged. Not all the time, but sometimes. And of course, we've got hormones and emotions and all those things that come with being a human being. Learning new world, going into we call it big school, secondary school, suddenly going from smaller classes to massive classes. People can just get lost there, having to take more responsibility, being asked to take more responsibility, being asked to grow up, being asked to do lots of things and actually still feeling like a child. And I remember having conversations before with Meg, but quite honest conversations, and when she said, I'm just not ready to be an adult yet. I'm not ready for all this pressure. And of course, we continually put pressure on through social media, through exams. If you've got a young person who's doing exams, that's an enormous amount of pressure. Even if you're not the one that's putting the pressure on, there's pressure coming from the school to get the results. There's pressure coming from friends who will be talking about it, and that peer pressure and the wanting to do well, or the not being bothered, and all of those different things that go with being at school, going through those years, having to grow up, having more responsibility, developing brain, because the brain is massively developing. We know it doesn't fully form now to your mid-20s. And for young men, that risk element of it doesn't form until the late 20s. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. And sometimes we get attitudes. By that, I mean we get language that is thrown at us. We get anger, we get frustration. And this is because the brain is going to react more and the emotions are going to be higher at this stage in someone's life. Read, Blame My Brain, do some research online. I'll see if I can persuade my favorite therapist to come back on and we can talk about the human brain and the emotions. And she'll talk about those things that are normal and those things that are not normal. Because I think sometimes when you're a parent to start off with, especially if it's your first child, you get that whole Is this normal behavior? Is what I'm seeing normal? Should they be in their room all the time? Should I be trying to get them out their room? Should they be on the phone? What are they watching? And all those things, that these added pressures that we have as parents now to try and protect them and keep our young people safe. So that's kind of what's going on over here with your young people. And because you are a safe place, you get all the pushback, you get all the emotion. I'm not saying it's right, by the way. I'm just saying this is how it is. I remember at the age of 15, I went away and worked away from home for 4 weeks, and I came back and I was a chuffing nightmare. I remember my mum sitting me down and saying, I don't know what to do with you, Nick. I think I'm going to have to call in a child psychologist, because I'd had freedom, I'd had independence, I'd had relying on myself. And when you start to realize that you can do these things as a teenager, you start to push back on those boundaries. And our job is to keep the boundaries and keep the love and always be there, no matter how hard it gets. And it does get hard. And for some of you, it will get really hard. Some of you will have young people in your life that are really pushing back, that might even be hitting you, that will certainly be swearing at you, that are staying out all night, and all of those things. I'm not here to tell you how to parent your child, okay? Because what I give you is just my opinion. What I would like to talk about is what's actually happening to their brain and their emotions, which we've just covered off, what's happening with you, which we'll talk about in a minute, and then some strategies of managing self. I was given a great piece of advice by a FBI colleague who said to me, Nick, you cannot change people. Stop trying. You can try and influence people. The only thing you have any control over really is how you choose to respond. And I have to tell you, this is not new. I remember going on, I used to do some work for Action for Children as a befriender. And I had this young man, a young lad, 15-year-old boy, lots of different issues. And I used to take him out every other weekend and we go and do different things. And their training was excellent. And one of the things they put on the first slide that we had was these young people hanging about on street corners, playing their music really loudly, forming gangs, being abusive and rude to the older people. And the question was, who said this? And I sat there and thought, well, I think I said that on a bus the other on a bus the other day. But also, any one of us could be saying it. And it was Aristotle. That's how long ago these things were starting to raise their head. We've always, generation after generation after generation, has had a challenge or an issue, shall we say, with teenagers, younger people. So it's not new. It's just when you become the parent, you suddenly realize all of these things. If you're not been a parent before, then it's hard. And it's like, am I doing it right? Everybody else seems to have everything together. Everybody seems to be running their lives really smoothly, like they saunter in looking amazing to work, and then they go home and they come back in. But none of us have, by the way. None of us have. Somebody said to me the other day, oh, you're always so calm and always so measured. And I was thinking, no, I'm not. That's just what you see on social media. But that I'm a human being. I have my I have my anger, I have my frustrations. I don't always get it right. But what I have learned, especially from being a hostage and crisis negotiator, is that you learn in the reflection. And the more you can reflect and the more conscious you become of your own communication, because remember, you can't change other people, even your own children. They've already got their personalities. You can't change them. You can influence, and we do influence, especially as parents. And it's our job to keep them safe, to influence. It's our job to show them our values and beliefs. It's our job to help them prepare for the next stage in life, which is leaving home and being independent. And then suddenly we get to that stage, don't we? And we're like, I don't want you to leave home. It's just like, whoa, what happened here? You were like small sitting on my knee and now you're ready to go home. I'm definitely experiencing that myself, that kind of grieving. And I think we do go through a grieving process. We grieve that young person that really needed us, who's suddenly become an independent person who doesn't necessarily want us around anymore. They'll need us for things like, can I have money for some trainers? Or I'm going to see my friends and we're going out for dinner. Can I have some money? And of course, we'll all have an opinion and belief around what is right and how that should be managed. but I'm not going to give you my opinion on that. You're your parent, you'll have your own beliefs, you'll try things and you'll do things. I also want you to think of it like this, that we do things from a place of good intent because we love and care about the young people in our life. So we're doing it from a place of good intent. So when they push back, it feels like they're questioning our love. Sometimes when they push back, you also feel as a parent, I believe, that we feel as parents that you're questioning my authority and suddenly you're saying no. And I haven't been told how to manage that. Can you do this? No. Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't expecting a no. Or, yeah, I'll do it. Or, mm-hmm. And then it doesn't get done. Or they'll say, well, I was going to do it. And by that stage, of course, you've done it yourself because you can't be bothered to wait or you're angry about it. And so there's an acceptance that we as the adults have around, do I get annoyed at that? Or do I accept that? Excuse me, do I accept that they'll get it done, but not necessarily in the time that I would get it done? And then now I get frustrated. So now I'm putting meaning to it. Like, why haven't they done it? They're pushing against my rules. They're pushing against my values. They're pushing against me as the parent. They're pushing against my authority. They're disrespecting me. I go out, I work hard, I'm tired, I bring the money in. Oh, yeah, they'll be right over in a minute when they want some money. And so we get all of this, we make it all mean something that it's not necessarily is. It's just that it's not as important to them than it is to us. And so it's about how do we manage ourselves and stop that reaction because it's our reaction that causes some of the problems. Not all of them, I get that. They're going to react anyway because they have no, excuse me, no idea how to handle that side of their brain. So we have to expect that and probably accept that. That can be hard, of course. So let's say that we accept it. We accept that we can't change them, we can't manage their behavior. Sorry, we can't change them and who they are at this time. So the only thing we have control of is how we choose at this stage to respond. And most of the time we react, so it makes it a little bit harder. But of course, now we know that we are reacting. So let's talk about the reaction. Let's talk about the 90-second rule. Now, there's been some research done on this, and it shows that emotions come and go like a wave, a bit like a wave. And if we cannot react for 90 seconds, we're more likely to be able to respond. It's more likely not to then snowball into that argument. You know, when you try to help your young person, maybe it's with homework, maybe it's with tidying their room, whatever it might be, you make a suggestion and you get a pushback, you get a reaction from it. And then you're like, look, I'm just trying to help you. I don't need your help. Well, it looks like you might need my help. I don't need your help. Look, you have to understand I'm experienced in this. Oh, this is what you always say to me. You've got the experience. I haven't got anything. You don't trust me. I'm not saying I don't trust you. Well, it appears to me that you don't trust me. And before we know it, we're in a full-blown argument. We start pushing back. They start pushing back. And a conversation that we thought was going to be simple has exploded. It's called Batari's box. My attitude affects my behavior affects your attitude affects your behavior. If we can manage ourselves in that 90 seconds, and it might just be walking away, the amount of times I've walked away, honestly, I've walked away. Sorry, I've got like a frog in my throat. Excuse me. If we can walk away and what I've what I've learned is I know when I'm going to react. I can feel it. I can feel it across my shoulders. I can feel it in my stomach. I can feel it in my chest. And I've learnt that walking away saves a lot of energy and a lot of upset that doesn't need to be there. And when I walk away, I mutter under my breath. Sometimes I might even go in the garden and say things, like, oh, here we go. Nick the slave, doing all the things, paying you money. You're just lounging around the house. And I'll just have this whole conversation with myself as I walk around the garden. And then by the time I've walked around the garden and come back in, I feel much better about it. I might even talk to the dogs about it, to be honest, but I walk away Because if I have the conversation with Meg, it's just going to snowball and it's going to get out of hand and it doesn't need to. And every reaction has a consequence. And those consequences can be quite painful. Like they might ignore you, they might push more boundaries, they might do different things. And friends going to have a massive influence here. And of course, when they get together with their friends are going to tell them they're right and that you're a horrible parent. Although not all of them might do. Some of them might actually say, you might be wrong. Depends who your teenagers' friends are. So that's about the reaction. What can you do to, we call it buying time. What can you do to buy yourself time so that you don't give a reaction, so the conversation doesn't snowball and become something it doesn't need to become? Because I don't know about you, life is hard work anyway, isn't it? Going to work, living with the guilt of going to work, trying to manage them, trying to find money to put food on the table, do the things that everybody wants to do to enjoy. You know, it's not hard. It's not, sorry, it's not easy. It's hard. It is hard. And so let's control the controllables. And one of those controllables is taking a big deep breath, pushing a great big pause button, walking around the garden, muttering under your breath, coming back. And sometimes, if you've got a partner in your life, the way they parent might be very different from you. So, not only are you negotiating with the young person in your life, you're also negotiating with your partner. And if you're a step parent, sometimes that can be even more challenging because you're not the blood parent. And you might find, especially at the beginning of a relationship, and you're building the relationship with the young person, that that can be quite difficult. You might have completely different ideas on parenting. So, yeah, so it all becomes a big melting pot of emotions. The only thing we can control is us. And so let's look after us and realize that we're not alone and that we're not doing a bad job. We're doing the best we can in the circumstances that we have. And we're going to learn about ourselves and we're going to become more conscious of how we react. And over time, I can reassure you on this, over time, it becomes easier. It becomes easier to recognize what's happening with you and for you to be able to walk away. And then we can have conversations in times of peace, as my friend would say. Not in the heat of the moment where we give a massive lecture around how tired I am, how hard my life is, how much money it takes to run the household and look after you and give you the things, and you're selfish, because that's not going to help. They're just going to keep that in the back of their heads and harbour on it. If we can walk away from that conversation without saying all of those things, and then we can have a conversation when it's calm around something like, yeah, look, uh, can we talk about yesterday, what happened yesterday? Because I don't know about you, but it didn't feel great for me. And then we can talk about it and we can talk about the emotions that perhaps they were showing us, and we can talk about the behavior and we can set boundaries. So if somebody gets very angry at you, often young people get angry and they're not sure why. Sometimes if they get angry at you, they might lash out or they might swear or they might storm out the house or they might break something, whatever it is. We can deal with the behavior and then we can deal with, sorry, we can deal with the emotion, then we can deal with the behavior. So we talk about that and then we say, look, it's okay to get angry. Angry is a natural emotion. It's not okay to take it out on your brother. It's not okay to smash the vase. It's not okay to swear at me. It's not okay to kick the door. How are we going to manage that in the future? And we'll come up with a plan together. Easier said than done. I appreciate that. It's just a strategy about having those conversations in calm rather than in the heat of the moment, because we're more likely to get a logical response from them and find a way forward. And managing yourself, what do you do for you? I'm pausing because I really want you to think about that. What do you do for you? Because as the young people in your life get older, they don't need you as much. And we're still waiting around for them. That doesn't end, by the way. Even at 19, when Meg disappears, I worry. And if I think she's coming home, I stay up all night. If I know she's not coming home, then I just check where she is. Anyway, that's an aside. But what do you do for you? How do you manage you? How do you look after you? Who's looking after you? Are you still doing the things that you enjoy doing? Or have you put everything to one side to focus on everybody else other than you? It's a big question, right? Um, and it's a question I'm going to leave you with today. So we talked about the human brain. Go and have a look at that book, Blame My Brain. We talked about reacting. How can you buy yourself some time? Can you walk away around the garden? Can you find a way of managing your emotions and becoming consciously aware of when you're about to explode and when you're about to react? Can you think of how you can do things differently if they're not going so well at the moment? And what part do you play? And I include myself in this because we all play a part. We all play a part. And it can be a difficult, challenging time. We are grieving in some respects. And also, it can come as a bit of a surprise when the young person in your life seems to suddenly change overnight, which of course they're not. It's been a run up and the body and the brain are changing. There is no right or wrong in parenting. Let me reframe that, okay? Because there are some things that we know don't work, and there are some things that we know work better. So we will all have our own ideas. It's not about me telling you how to parent, it's about just giving you some ideas around communication in the main and managing self. I hope that's been useful. Why am I talking about parenting? Because it's hard, because people talk to me all the time about it, because some of the tips that I've given really help other people. We are going to be running a positive parenting summit next year in May. Very exciting. I've got lots of experts coming along to have conversations with parents, to give you support, not to tell you how to parent, but to give you support, give you options, show you different strategies, show you ways of listening to the young people in your life. We talk about emotional labeling, we'll talk about reflective language. We've talked a little bit here about the human brain, we'll talk more about that. We've talked a little bit here about managing self, we'll talk more about that. And the idea around this is that it will help to support you to build an understanding and a connection to improve those relationships and to help you if you're feeling lonely and isolated and worrying about your young person in your life and also worrying about yourself. There are lots of frightening statistics out there around how young people are suffering from anxiety at the moment, especially around school time. We've got self-harm, we've got suicide, all of these subjects we can talk about. If you go to some of the other Let's Talk About podcasts, we talk about suicide in those ones, especially and self-harm around young people having control, wanting control, feeling that they're not in control, and all those different things. If you need us for any reason, please reach out. There's some great organisations out there that will listen to you and help you through them. If you'd like to know more about the Positive Parenting Summit, please just leave me a message and someone will get back to you. Or join me next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. We're going to be just running a free webinar on how to survive the summer holidays. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes those 6 weeks feel like a lifetime when you're still trying to balance work and you're trying to balance being a parent. I'm not saying I'm right, I'm not saying I'm wrong. I'm just here to create a community of people who can help each other out and for us to be able to share our stories and share our information and share those things that worked for us as parents. I think that's really important, but also to reflect on the things that don't work. Because sometimes things don't work. Being like shouting at somebody doesn't work. We know that as a human being. I don't respond well to it. I don't suppose you respond well to it. And certainly the young people in our lives don't particularly respond well to it, but it might just be that it's their natural reaction. So the more we get to know about them, and the more we get to know about ourselves, then that'll just help us to improve those relationships. Take care of yourselves for now. I'll speak to you soon.